Hello there everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr and welcome to another Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. And today we're going to be talking about probably the least hyped character Dissidia has had in a pretty long time in Ciaran and his lost chapter and all of the stuff that's going to be coming along with his LD and the rework that he gets. So Ciaran's not a character that a lot of people are particularly excited about, but there is more to him than meets the eye. So if that's all stuff that you guys are interested in, then stay tuned and keep on watching. As is always the case, guys, don't forget to check out all my social media down in the description box below for all of my links. Twitch this week, I actually did a stream for Smash Bros this week that went really well as we were waiting for Sephiroth to come out, and by God, do I love that character in that game. He's so much fun to play as. Definitely not top tier, definitely got his weaknesses, but really enjoyed playing him. So thank you to every one of you that turned up for that. I also will be continuing my FF count up every Friday, although I've not been uploading it to YouTube as much recently. So really, I'd like to hear from you guys as to whether you want me to continue to upload this to YouTube or not, or whether I should just keep it to stream, really. And then obviously I shall be streaming Ciaran's Lost Chapter and Rude's event as well when it comes out on Christmas Eve. And then on the 26th, I also have a giant quiz plan that I've been advertising on my social media. So if you'd like to find out more about that, then definitely check out my Twitter and my Discord as well. On Patreon, I always shout out one of my patrons every time I release a video, so I can give thanks to each and every person individually that decides to support my channel further. And today that person is going to be Ciaran. So thank you very much for your support. You've actually been a patron of mine for a little while now, so massive thank you to you. And if you'd like a title card, just like Ciaran has here, as well as benefits such as voice chats with myself, and obviously being a part of the Would You Pull section of the videos or anything like that, then definitely consider becoming a patron yourself. Don't forget to check out all of the links around me as well for anything related to Opera Omnia and all of the other content creators just being listed below as well as myself. So as always, first things first, we're going to take a look at the banner and any new additions that come from that banner. And this time around, we're going to be getting Ciaran, all of his EX and his LD weapon, as well as Sephiroth's burst making a return. But again, it's just his burst and not his LD or his EX. If you need those, you're going to need to go back and pull on Sephiroth's own banners. And then he's also going to be accompanied by Kryl and Lael. Now, these are quite cool characters to be featured again with their EXs, but they get much stronger later on. And Kryl actually isn't all that far away from getting her own LD, whereas Lael's a bit further away. So you don't really need to pull for either of them here either. But the only character that's actually going to be getting anything new here is actually Ciaran. Now, Ciaran was kind of swept under the rug the first time he came around, and due to the timing of his release, he's kind of getting the same treatment again when it comes to his rework and his LD. Now, Bash and Holy Strike are there initially. Basically, the mechanics with Ciaran is that he builds up his drops of myrrh. If you've ever played Crystal Chronicles or the ill-fated Crystal Chronicles Remastered, then the drops of myrrh are the things that he collects within the game in order to be able to make it safer for the rest of his party. And that's reflected in Dissidia as well. So the drops of myrrh raise all of your stats, so your initial bravery, max bravery, attack and defense for your party, and they scale with up to 5 different stacks or 5 stacks of the drops of myrrh. And he basically is an aura-based character. Like his Crystal Caravan has buffs, his EX has buffs, his drops of myrrh have buffs. And his rework basically makes it so that all of his skills do party battery as well, because Bash originally didn't, but now it does. And all of his skills get buffed to the number of hits that they have, and the parameter increases from drops of myrrh is also increased. So Bash is there to gain drops of myrrh. So basically you're there to try and get up to 5 as quickly as possible. And then you get variants on his HP attacks and an additional version of his skill 2 that are significantly stronger, but they cost you drops of myrrh to use. So that was always the issue that Ciaran had, is that his auras were actually really good, but once you hit 5 stacks of it, you'd have to start using them in order to fuel his skills and therefore making your auras less potent, which isn't ideal. But some of his stuff, like when you get 5 drops of myrrh and you get to his second skill, so Holy Strike, it turns into Holy Rust Strike, which is a 100% AoE damage dealing attack with a decent number of hits on it, and it comes off, you know, it actually hits pretty hard. But then when he goes to do his rework and stuff, he gets better hit counts on everything. Like he gets 6 hits on Holy Rust Strike, which is pretty significant for 100% AoE on a skill that's not an EX or an LD, which isn't bad. He also gets A Brave Plus and HP Plus, but they honestly don't really come into play because you should always have drops of Myrrh on him, and when you have drops of Myrrh, he gets Soul Shot instead, which is a different Brave HP, and then with the rework, that now has splash damage as well, so you get that from everything. So basically, all the rework really adds to him is the fact that you get a party battery off of practically everything he does, so Bash, Holy Strike, Holy Restrike, Soul Shot, and then Soul Shot Plus from having 5 drops of Myrrh. So basically he just gets party battery. The only thing he's really missing as a support character is HP regen, but there are plenty of like offensive based characters that have HP regen in their kit, which make it so that you don't necessarily need to have HP regen on Ciaran. His EX also gave him more drops of Myrrh as well, and honestly it's quite nice the fact that it has a decent recast rate as well, and it would give him the drops of Myrrh, and it would also give him a second buff as well, which is Memories of Chronicles, which raises party attack and max Brave overflow limit, which is nice. So basically he's just all aura. Like everything Ciaran is aura, so you get... you start the quest with drops of Myrrh as well, which is even more reason why the HP Plus and Brave Plus aren't ever really going to be a thing. But up until this point, he's still not doing an awful lot of damage. He's doing okay damage because, I mean, the regular EX is split damage, which, again, isn't fantastic. But Holy Restrike has 100% AoE, and now his Soul Shots have splash damage as well. But the fact that you're having to spend the drops of Myrrh is just not cute. Enter his LD. Now his LD Shadow Blade gives him another buff, and it's another split HP damage, but at least there's 2 HP dumps within this. So it's 3 hit AoE Brave HP, then 5 hit AoE Brave HP. And this gives him another buff, which is again an aura for the party. So initial bravery up, and then more brave overflow, and then brave regen on top of it. But the most important thing, apart from the fact that you get a free skill use on the next turn, is that while he has his world memories buff up, he doesn't use his drops of Myrrh when he uses his other skills. Like, he doesn't consume them, which means that he's free to use Holy Restrike, he's free to use Soul Shot Plus, and not worry about having to balance the party auras from the drops of Myrrh, and you can start sort of spamming these 100% AoE damaging attacks, and it's actually pretty potent. I mean, when he's got, like, with the Power Stone buff, the fact that he gets an HP++ and a Brave Attack++, it's like, it's cool, I guess, but you're not going to really see them because, as it says at the bottom here, the priority is always given to Soul Shot as long as you have at least 1 drop of Myrrh, which, given that his LD makes it so that he always has drops of Myrrh, you're never even going to see the Brave HP Plus, realistically. He also only gets 3 uses out of this. And that means that there's going to be 27 turns, so you get 8 turns of the buff, and obviously the turn in which you're using the LD, to kind of keep up with having the world memories buff up so that you're not using those drops of Myrrh. So he does last for a significantly much greater length of time. So he's definitely not bad. Like, he's certainly not a bad character anymore. Certainly with the fact that he has these great party auras, he can churn out damage pretty well now because of the fact that he's got a pretty fast casting EX, and Holy Restrike on tap is pretty nice. He's batterying constantly, and he's got these massive amounts of stat buffs. The problem that he has is that he's not exceptional in any way, apart from the fact that he provides all of these auras. In terms of damage, we're sort of seeing characters like Kuja, Cloud is coming up shortly. We've got Lightning. The damage capabilities are way stronger. And then as a support character, he gets superseded like the following banner by Rude, who is also a support character that does crazy amounts of battery, but also has crazy amounts of healing on top of it, and a pretty nasty amount of damage to go with it. So the problem that Ciaran has is that he's pretty much immediately made redundant by Rude straight after. But if you want to use Ciaran, there's no reason why you couldn't. He certainly isn't bad. Now obviously Ciaran does have a cool ability as well, so Holy Restrike is his cool ability, which is handy, and it's actually pretty good. It's a 6-hit Brave HP that deals 100% AoE damage. So if you want a cool ability that's pretty much just damage, then you're not going to get much better than this for the time being. But there's not a lot of bells and whistles attached to it. So if you need something else, then Ciaran's not the character you're going to be bringing along. His C65 gives him more drops of Myrrh. So honestly, you're not going to be that worried about that as long as you're using the LD. And then you're not going to give high armor to Ciaran, let's be honest. Even if he had like crazy good like effects on his armor, you wouldn't give it to him. But it's the party aura by 5% attack. So honestly, even if you were considering it, it's not an armor type that you'd realistically want for him. Artifacts wise, he has a C50 that boosts his offensive stats, and he wants attack. So again, nice and simple with him, but honestly, 90% of people probably are going to skip Ciaran realistically, so I wouldn't stress too much about it. So now let's go over the last horseman of the Lufenian apocalypse, as it were, in Ciaran's Lost Chapter event. Now this is the last one that should be like really egregious and nasty for people. Like if you've managed to finish Reno and Sephiroth's Lufenias, you should be able to finish this. Basically, the reason that they're such a pain is because they are very strict on the kinds of characters you can bring along with you. Now, this one is slightly different in that there's actually 2 waves in this particular Lufenia fight. The first one doesn't have an ore, whereas the second one does. But honestly, the first wave is just as, if not more dangerous than the second in some ways, because you're fighting 3 were-tiger enemies, which will hit hard and fast, and they buff themselves over the course of the fight until they reach a certain point, level 6, as I'm reading on Tombury Troop's website and Rem's websites as well, where, and obviously I've been watching some of the clears, but they never get to this point because they're always cleared. Where if they get to that point, they will like insta-kill your party. They will do an attack that dispels all your buffs and KOs you. This buff is accelerated if any of your party members has under 50% HP, which means if you're planning on bringing Ard in for his insta-break capabilities, then you're going to need to make sure that he stays healthy, because the second that the were-tigers see that your party is under 50% HP, they will go for the insta-kill attack. Now, Gladiolus is perfect for this, because with an early LD cast, he's going to be able to counter enemies, like, because there's 3 of them and they're quite fast, you can just counter for days and days and days, and you're also protecting your party at the same time. You're keeping the buffs up, you're keeping the regens, you'll keep everything after that. But past that, you're going to want straight up AoE damage, because you're going to want to take these guys down as fast as possible. So Strago, Kuja, characters like that, they're all going to work really well. Reno actually works really well here because his num debuff will actually push the enemies back because most of their attacks are physical. And Reno works really well for the second wave as well. So he's a great character to bring along for this if you have him. Now, the second wave, which are the Wild Shearers, so they're big bears, are a variant on Humbarbers, so they've got all the things that you don't want to see. So, like, they've got a variant on the Needle Shot attack, which is multiple HP attacks. They've got delay in their kit. They're just not nice enemies to fight at the best of times. But we've now got another damage race that's similar to Sephiroth's Lufenia mission to go along with it. It's a little easier than Sephiroth's one, as long as you're bringing the correct party, but it's still a difficult one. And the orb will appear at the start of the fight up until both enemies are under 80% HP, and then it will appear again from when they hit under 50% HP until under 30%, and then after that point, after it's gone away again, they will bring the orb back one final time after they next cast their spear shot attack, like from that point onwards. And the turn count goes down like each time it starts. So at the start is 25 turns, from the 50% HP point is 15 turns, and then the final one is 10 turns. So if you're bringing a burst along or anything like that, then make sure you time your summons, your bursts, etc. accordingly with these lowering turn counts. Now, the enemies also absorb all elements except for Holy and Thunder. So if you've got, like, I mean, honestly, I'm looking forward for another reason to bring Kuja along to a fight. And then, or you could bring Lightning along. Lightning's a very common damage dealer for this because she's just that good. And the enemies are also resistant to ranged. Now, a lot of people will recommend Trey for this particular fight, and there is a reason for that. But if you are bringing Trey along, because he has his instant break mechanics and things like that, then make sure you're bringing along someone who can enchant him with an element so that he's actually dealing damage. But the thing with this fight that you need to watch out for is that the enemies will put up a red aura, similar to what they did in Sephiroth's Lufenia, periodically at the correct HP thresholds, that instantly gains them 64,000 bravery, and all bravery damage they take from that point is reduced to 1. So just like the one from Sephiroth's one. If the enemy does not get broken by the time that their next turn comes around, they then do an attack that dispel and insta-kills one of your party members, which obviously you don't want to happen. Like Gladio, his tanking is great, but if he's dispelled, then he's losing like all of his frame buffs, he's losing his 0 damage, and he's still gonna get hit, unfortunately. But so the only real ways that you have to get around this are you can instantly break them with an ability that does so. So Strago is a fantastic character for this because he has the great AoE damage for both waves, and the ability to instant break. And because they put their bravery up to 64,000 exactly, you can use Brave 2 Death instead of his LD and it'll still work. And then you could use Trey, like I said, with his instant break mechanics. Arden does work for this, but you obviously have to time his EX perfectly, and you have to worry about him for the first wave as well. You can gravity-based damage the enemies down to 0 via, say, Sephiroth or a Mid-Italian or Edward. And Edward is actually useful because you can put the enemies to sleep in the first wave as well. Or you can use Reno's Pyramid on them so that they don't deal any damage or any debuffs or anything like that. Though, be warned, because if you're using Reno's Pyramid attack, then you still need the enemy to, do the attack, which means that they're going to have the red aura and they're going to dispel you en masse as well. So you're going to have to put all your buffs and stuff back up. Things like paralysis, sleep, etc. aren't going to work here because the enemy has to actually try to take their turn and do the attack in order to lose the aura if they haven't been broken by that point. So while Edward is great for sleep on the first wave, the reason you're using his LD on the second one is to reduce their bravery to 0 so that you can then break them. It's not to put them to sleep. So there's lots of ways around this. It's not as scary as the last one, but it's still pretty scary. So just make sure you're bringing the correct characters along with you and you should be fine. So now for the big question when it comes to Ciaran, should you be pulling on Ciaran's banner? Now, the large majority of players, myself included, will probably say no. Now, there's not many chances these days for us to start saving resources and to safely skip a banner where you're not going to use them on something. Now, that's not to say Ciaran is bad, because he's not. And if you would like using characters that are perhaps undervalued by other players, then you're not going to do wrong with Ciaran. Or if you have, but my one piece of advice for if you are pulling on Ciaran just because you think, oh, well, other people don't like him, but he's actually really good. That's all well and good, but try to think of places in the future that you're going to actually use him. I put screenshots up of Tonberry Troop and Rem's websites for their Lufenia databases. Actually try taking a look through them and seeing where you would put Ciaran in a fight that you wouldn't use a different character for. Because if you can find multiple reasons or multiple places in which you can use Ciaran, then go for him, because then that's a good reason for you to pull for him. If you want another place to pull for Sephiroth's Burst, I mean, Sephiroth's Burst isn't the most, pressing, burst out there, but if you want it, then I would suggest waiting for Rude's Banner. But if you get lucky during Rude's Banner, and you pull his EX and his LD, way before you go in for Sephiroth's Burst, then you could throw a pull or two on Ciaran, getting an extra character isn't a bad thing. And if you, lastly, there's a free pull coming along with it. If you get, his LD in the free pull and you don't have his EX or anything, you could throw some tickets at it to try and finish it up. It's you're pulling for half of what you needed to before. Or, some people might get that and then still ignore it. Either way it works. But at the end of the day, Ciaran is not a must-have character by any stretch of the word. Because there aren't many applications for Ciaran in terms of Lufenia missions and stuff that weren't just better performed by other characters. Like I said earlier, Rude's coming at the end of the week, and he's going to absolutely ruin most support-based roles for quite some time. So you're just not going to use Ciaran over him in the large majority of places, because you only have 3 party slots, let's be honest. And honestly, like I said earlier, if you want to take an opportunity to save, take it. We don't get many. So, Cloud's coming up, Rude's coming up, Ramza's going to be in a month or so's time, and loads of people want Ramza. There's lots of banners that are much more pressing than Ciaran, so honestly, if you could take the opportunity to save, I would do so now. So now, of course, it's time, finally, for Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, can let us all know whether you would or wouldn't pull on any given banner and your reasons why or why not. Now, I had a little bit of a moment with the straw poll website that I normally give to my patrons, so I had to use a different website, but luckily everyone was very accommodating and voted for me twice, so thank you all very much for doing that. But it's a pretty unanimous thing when it comes to Ciaran that people just aren't all that interested in him. 69% of people said no, they weren't going to pull on Ciaran at all. 31% of people said yes, they were going to use tickets. And 0% said that they were going to use gems on this banner, which honestly I'm not surprised by. Ciaran, everyone knows that he's not essential. Everyone knows that he's good, but he's not mandatory. So the fact that there's a fair few people that are even willing to put tickets into him is pretty cool. That's a Padlin says, I think I'm going to skip. I don't really care for Ciaran all that much. His hair and hideous gear are somewhat off-putting. Crystal Chronicles does have a weird thing where it's got very wide swords. and he's bound to pop up eventually with his LD boards. I might grab him then, but for now, it's a pretty easy skip. With his auras and damage output, he's a good character, but I'm not all that interested. I went in big time on Strago, so I'm not concerned about the Lufenia stage. His damage is definitely improved, but when you compare it to the likes of your Lightnings, your VVs, your Kujas, your Stragos even, it just doesn't quite add up. ABC says, I wanted to, but I spent more than I wanted to on Reno and ended up ingoting Sephiroth. No spare resources for a character needing a full kit. Come on, free pull. Like I said, if you get something in a free pull, then you could finish the kit off and you'd have a pretty cool character to go along with it. Spickle says, I do not intend to pull for Ciaran. I'm saving my gems for Rude and building my tickets back up again for upcoming LDs. Pulled a lot recently, so need to rebuild at some point. I'm pretty sure that this is where a very large majority of players stand when it comes to this particular banner, and I just don't think that a lot of people are going to spend loads of resource on a character that they kind of want, because the timing is just so bad. Like, there's a lot of characters that people really love that have come and gone recently, so this is going to be the best time for you to save up. And then finally, Ultra Flash Flare says, Reno was super gentle with me. Sephiroth LD took me over 200 tickets and then went on to using gems, so I'll be using tickets. So, like, there are people that will pull for Ciaran, but I don't think anyone is going to, like, go pitying him anytime soon. So he's a decent character, but decent in the age of busted, as we've come across this kind of thing in the past before, sometimes just isn't enough to cut the mustard. So that's going to be all for today's video on Ciaran. Thank you all very much for watching, and a big shout out to all of my patrons for voting on the Would You Pull section of the video. Let me know in the comments below whether you plan to pull for Ciaran. Honestly, I'd love to hear from people that do want him and do want to pull for him, and their reasons why and where they plan to apply him as well when it comes to upcoming content. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell for notifications of any future videos I might be making, and I will see you guys next time. So thank you very much again, and I'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.